Hi, in this little NDS session, I thought what we would try and do is show you how you can balance amino acids. Been a lot of discussion about milk protein price, what it looks like, and so what I'm going to do is just open up a diet and look at CNCPS, NDS on balancing amino acids. So what I've done is I've come in with a diet, pretty representative diet, corn silage, alfalfa hay, could have been haylage too. I put 2 different corn grains in there, 2 different proteins, a little cottonseed, some soy hulls, a mineral mix that did include a tad bit of blood in there. I can open it up, you can take a look here, some different traces, a little bit of RUM&N, blood meal. This was one I just pulled out of a dairy. And so you can see there's average blood meal in there, and it's about 1/3 of a pound. So I want to double check my milk price here. This is the most current milk price that's coming through the import from the Federal Milk Marketing Order. Cost of the rations here, dry matter 54, shooting for 88 pounds of milk, and it's about right in there on this dairy. Some of the parameters of the ration: 16.8 protein, the NDF 31, starch is 27. And so the dairy is about 88 pounds of milk with a 385 or so, about a 385 milk fat, and the true protein is 3.1. What we'd like to do is investigate about trying to feed amino acids and how we might balance the amino acids in this area here. You can see that instead of just the grams of methionine and lysine that would be listed here, what I've chosen down here is looking at the grams of methionine per megacal of energy, lysine grams per megacal of energy, and that's the most current methodology used in CNCPS. So if we go down here, we can see the amino acid page also. Pretty much nothing's changed in the last few years. You can see the total dietary, so intake amino acids, the duodenal flow. Here's a metabolizable amino acid supply. And as you see down through here, here's something that's been added as far as the ratios. So if we click on this amino acid to energy, what it's actually looking at is where are the amino acids, the grams, in relation to how many megacals are in this diet. Again, this has been important for us to look at, because if energy is limiting in this diet, then we basically are not going to see our response. So what we used to have to do is take the grams, divide it by the megacals, and try to come up with a optimal for lysine and methionine. Now, depending on what you're looking at in 6.55 now, methionine, lysine are the focus. More information may be coming out later, looking at some other references and some up-to-date literature. I was just going to show you how to do the methionine and lysine to meet the requirements. So one easy way of looking at this is right through here. You can see our optimals 1.13 on methionine and the lysine 3.05. One of the little shortcuts in NDS is looking at the milk quality, and these are the hockey sticks or the breakover graphs that we've seen from in the past, as far as looking at digestible methionine as a percent of MP. And you can see the same thing for lysine over here. But clear over here is our expectations for the grams for the methionine levels here. All right, so here's our expectations, and what we can do is we can actually change these this from yield to content and back and forth to decide what you want to see. What I think I'll do is leave it on content, and then what I wanted to look at is then looking at my methionine deficiency and my lysine deficiency here. And what I'd like to do is use this little function here when I add products that are bypass methionine and bypass lysine source, and I just made these very generic and called them rumen protected methionine 1, methionine 2, methionine 3, rumen protected lysine 1, lysine 2. Put different prices on them. In fact, I left the availabilities all the same, but if I click on this little box here, it will actually give me a small window here that will let me look at including any one of these products. And what I've done is I've left the products pretty much the same as far as the amount of methionine and amount of lysine in them. Bypass lysine, methionine, or rumen protected. What I did is I just varied the cost, as you can see over here. So lysine 1 will basically, I need 12.4 grams of that product in order to get me up to the inclusion level I want to be based on ME, and it will cost me this amount of money, okay, because it's $7,000 a ton, whereas lysine 2 was $6,000, and you can see about the same amount of product, and it's going to cost less. So from here, if I'm choosing my lysine source, I can right mouse click here and get that amount into the recipe, and it will fill right here. I can do the same thing on my methionine sources and come up here and say, do I like 1, 2, or 3? And let's say I have a preference for product 2 for methionine. I can right mouse click that and get that into recipe 2. Then those are filled in. I can click over here. Then I can go back to the CNCPS tab right here, and I can compare where I am here. So I'm a lot closer in my ratios of methionine and lysine down here. And so I can pick this graph up and look and say, okay, what I might do is I might want to put a tad bit more lysine in that to hit maybe 3.0. So maybe I go to 0.03. Let's see, 0.05. Okay, so now I'm a lot closer. I feel okay about that. I'm within the range here on the downward range, but I'm 2.7, so off tad bit little there. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm pretty close right in here, so I'm going to go ahead and accept this. Now, the thing that I haven't done is I've added these products with these costs, and right here I can see that the cost was $6.07, and now I've increased my cost 30 cents. One thing I haven't done for the model is told the inputs that I'm expecting a response in this true protein amount. So if I'm going to expect maybe a 0.15 response, then what I might do is change this to 3.25. Now if I went down to my milk price, of course I'd see that response here because my per hundredweight price with more protein in there would change, but it's generated off of here. So now if I do a comparison of these two diets, and I choose to do my comparison on the base or the current production, then what I can see is that the milk didn't change, but my milk protein did. I'll go back real quick on that and show you that if I would have put in you know, my milk response probably changed in here, but what I'm using is this base amount, and my expectations are driven off of what I know, that if I hit methionine and lysine closer to here, I should get a response of some amount. And then that gets back to the user. What's your experience? What do you see? What have you seen in the past? So with me, I feel okay about that. And so here's my two versions. And so what I can see is that my cost of per head went up 29 cents, but my income over feed cost with just the increase in protein is going to give me an income over feed cost of 10.3 cents over the total cost of the diet. And that's if I only get my protein response just by simple addition. Now, we've got the two diets lined up here. You can see that I've added this and this, and I can go down to CNCPS, amino acids, and see where my supply was, or I can go down to energy-wise, and my methionine for energy went from 0.9 to 0.12, and lysine went from 2.9 to 2.97. So just some very basic hunt and peck mechanism you can do here. A lot of people will now go in and using the 88 pound level, the idea is I could lower my total MP by 3 to 5% once I hit methionine and lysine. So then I can take a little bit of, so for in this instance, what I could do is I could come in here and click here and maybe take minus 0.25 here out of soybean meal. And just to make sure that I'm adding apples to apples, I would put it in the, oops, not here, excuse me. I want to put it in here. So add that in here. So now I'm apples to apples in my comparison. I've lowered my total crude protein slightly in this. I can run the comparison, and I want to compare the saved versus the last. So now I'm comparing about the same intake. My cost is 27 cents, and my income over feed cost is now 12.6 cents. So that's what I'm looking at, trying to figure out if that's, you know, a scenario I'd want to look at. Again, if I go back to the diet, the current diet, I'm at 1.1 on methionine, 2.96 on lysine. Maybe to get my ratio down, I need some more lysine in there, and I can manipulate that. The other aspect that you can do is you can always use the optimizer to do this. And so I've got this diet in here. It's not the existing or the starting diet. Let me see here. So let's see if I can, and so soy hulls, restore starting amount. Okay, so what I can do is start with the original diet again, go over to the optimizer, and then this is a total working in itself. We've done some recorded tutorials on the optimizer, but if we want to look at some quick functions, regenerate some specifications, I may want to just use one lysine product that I might favor, and then have my optimizer set up. You can see I hit the requirements here. I'm a little lower in ME and MP here, so I may lower this to 99, 98. My real goal is to try and get the optimizer to pull this. So I may just go ahead and run the optimizer and see if it can come up with some optimal. And again, it's pulling in either product, and got some constraint issues up here. It ran those optimals. They are optimals. And just in the optimizer itself, you can see that my max as fed was 70.7. It's bumping up against there each time. 7.2 on the lower side of my hay, and it's bumping up against those. But it is calling these optimal diets. So if I run down here, and you can see I've hit my 3 and 1.5 here. Now, I can accept any one of these and go back and manipulate it, but just quickly looking at how you might run the optimizer to do that. Of course, we could unmix the demo mix and take the blood meal and vary that. We could also lower these crude protein levels, put targets in there, but it did look like it took quite a bit less protein in each one of our scenarios than we did. So what I might do is choose this as the solution and come back and make it the solution in my diet. This is all just optimizer functions. And now look at that, but leaving it here is what I want those comparisons to be. And so I may run that as a comparison to. Now I can go to the show all version, and I'm going to go ahead and hide version 2. That didn't mean anything. But now I can compare these 3 scenarios: my first saved diet, my hand-picked or plucked diet, versus version 4, which was the optimized diet. And I can look at, the cost of these and the income over feed cost, and we can compare those numbers. So I can use the optimizer. Allowable milk would be here, amino acids would be here, and you can look at any of those areas right here. Here was our methionine, here was our lysine. The optimizer took what I asked it to, went up a little bit. Interesting though, it took a whole lot less crude protein. It was down to 6.12, so the optimizer found optimal solutions. Price of those diets basically was about was a little more than my original diet, but with the protein down, the income over feed cost, it was not as good as the original, but my optimized or my hand-picked diet was the best, the income over feed cost per head. So gives you some functionality to look at amino acid balancing, and that's just what I wanted to touch on. Again, if I go back and look at the ratio now with the methionine and lysine products in there, I may want to trip this up a little bit and add some more protein so that I'm not negative in my amino acids as a relation to energy on any of those. There's also some discussion about the total essential amino acids needing to be 21, so maybe I'd open up my mix again and feed a little more protein here in blood meal, or increase my soybean meal or canola just a little bit. But anyway, just the functionality, I wanted to show you what it looks like, how you can manipulate and use the NDS using the inputted, this value instead of the expected milk production, using the current and changing this to reflect my milk price down here. Again, if we change that back, we're getting $18.48 for our milk. If we change that back to 3.1, we're getting $18.02. So using the functionality of the comparison tab with the current or this screen up here, it allows you to manipulate your components to give you an idea what that response might look like. So with that, I just wanted to show you that, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.